Hi, this is Kevin for Drawn and Quartered. This is my second video, fourth on our little series here. So it's been about a week, 8 days since the election, since President-elect Trump was elected, and obviously the country's gone through a little bit of soul searching on both sides. Some valid and what I would consider invalid reactions to to this to this new revelation that we're gonna and this new reality that we have. So I got a couple things. So again, I'm gonna read off notes. So I want to make sure that I'm pretty clear. And this video here will be mostly about how I digested what's happened. I waited a week on purpose so that I could digest it fully and not have a knee-jerk reaction to how I felt one way or the other. Plus also seeing, I guess, how others were going to react to it. And some obviously reacted in very predictable ways and some in non-so-predictable ways. But this is going to be kind of a right versus left thing. We use it a lot and it's very colloquial. But what I'm really concerned about in this video is how people who would see themselves as Democrats have digested it, and people who have seen themselves as Republicans have digested it, or conservative versus liberal people in the American system. Those terms, conservative and liberal, have meant different things in different places and different time periods. So, what I want to talk about first is where we get our news. Back in the 60s and 70s, 50s, Americans had like 4 stations to get their news from: ABC, NBC. You know, that's who they would listen to, Walter Cronkite or what have you. I mean, there was only 4 channels on your TV or whatever there was. But now we get it from vastly different sources. We are working with different information. Sometimes vastly different information. So I wrote down some really fast stuff, but there's these lists are obviously expandable, and I might even hit the highest points. But on the left you have Mother Jones. Some people say Salon, which I can understand that, and then Huffington Post, mostly because I think Huffington Post is a really big website, so maybe it gets a lot of attention. Maybe because it's not as liberal as some other ones, but it's definitely bigger than other ones, so it's going to garner the attention because of its reach. On the right, you have Infowars. It's Alex Jones' website, in case you don't know. Breitbart, formerly Steve Bannon, was the head over there. And then you have the Rush Limbaugh Show, which has been around for years through radio, AM. Obviously, the internet kind of has taken over that media to a certain extent. And there are a bunch of other ones. You could obviously, in my opinion, add Fox News onto there, Sean Hannity, people like that. But if you read the headlines on either of these websites and contrast them to a website that is juxtaposed in its political leanings, you will get vastly different headlines that will paint a vastly different picture for America. And these are not regional websites. They're not. I mean, anybody who has an internet connection can get to these. I mean, even if you have a 5K like dial-up, you can still get to these websites. It might take you a little longer, but they're very accessible. So if you don't want to go to Huffington Post and read what they have to say, or you don't want to go to Infowars and read what they have to say, you don't have to. Like, this is the new way that Americans digest media, is we stick in our own respective bubbles, left or right, liberal or conservative. So this brings me to Donald Trump. He is the president-elect, and he's putting together his transition team right now. And Donald Trump ran on a lot of things, but one of the strong points that people liked about him is that he is anti-establishment. Donald Trump is not a politician. He says it over and over again. He is a billionaire businessman who bought politicians. So he knows how to run the game the correct way and to get the corruption out of Washington. He said it all the time: drain the swamp. But now here he comes, and he's got Reince Priebus as his chief of staff. He's hiring people back who have been in D.C. for years and sometimes decades. I mean, Newt Gingrich, shoot, if you are under 18, you might not even remember a time when Newt Gingrich was anything but a presidential candidate and a pundit on some television show. I mean, he hasn't been in government since the 90s. And it's just, it's kind of laughable to me. It's kind of unbelievable, but at the same time, it makes sense because Donald Trump doesn't know how to be president, right? He's never been there. He's seen it from his vantage point as a businessman, and I'll give him that. He's seen more of it than I have. He's seen more of it than the vast majority of Americans have. But he's never been in government, so he doesn't know the process of the unreal bureaucracy and day-to-day goings on of being president. So he has to bring people in that have some idea of how this works, and those people are going to be the establishment. So yeah, he might kick out people that we don't like or somebody doesn't like, right? He might kick people out that conservatives don't like, but then he's going to bring in conservatives or he's going to bring people in that conservatives do like. So he's draining the swamp with one to bring in the other. Like it's predictable. Of these people, one of the ones that I find the most interesting is Steve Bannon, formerly of Breitbart News. He was brought under the Trump campaign late in the season, late in the campaigning. It was seen as like plug in the boat kind of move from the Trump campaign at the time, and I could totally understand. Nobody really transitions their team. I mean, you're in the home stretch, but he was brought in, and he was given a pretty prominent position in the Trump campaign, and now he's going to be Trump's chief strategist. But what's more interesting to me than Steve Bannon's own positions are how people talk about him. And this is going to circle back to the right versus left news sites. If you listen to Huffington Post, Salon, Mother Jones, any of these websites, you are going to find articles or people talking about Steve Bannon's right-wing leanings, his white nationalist leanings, his anti-Jewish comments, his anti-immigration comments, his anti-anybody who's not white comments. If you go to InfoWars or Breitbart, although Breitbart has a couple of different dynamics going on, seeing that Steve Bannon, used to be the boss over there, or the Rush Limbaugh Show, or Fox News, or anywhere else which you would consider slanting to the right, they see him as a really great pick and somebody who's going to, help Trump, create his vision. On the right, they reject this idea that Steve Bannon is any of those things that the left says that he is. And so it can't be both. But this goes back to the echo chamber that we find ourselves in. Nobody's working off the same information, so that we can never come to the same conclusions. So we will always get these same results in terms of how, as Americans, we digest this. We are digesting it differently because we are working with different inputs. Regardless if Trump's presidency is a national disaster or a national triumph, this will continue as long as we are working with separate data sets. And a little postscript to this, I'm going to tell you how I feel. If you go on the alt-right websites, which I would consider Breitbart, InfoWars, anything like that, you will find headlines that just are so far from what I would consider newsworthy or what would be a centrist version of daily events that it's kind of mind-boggling. One of the worst ones that I didn't know about until I was researching this video, and I was on InfoWars, and in one of their articles they referenced it through a Glenn Beck quote, but it's called the Daily Stormer, and it's they tag themselves as America's #1 most trusted Republican news source. First in facts, first in integrity. Sounds okay. Okay, maybe they, just see things from a little bit of a conservative view. But if you scroll down, they got some really interesting articles. One article is called Slut Nation, Swedish sluts get hotline to reporting mansplaining. Trump transition, lying NYT Jews lying NYT Jews up to their old tricks again. Making racism tasty, pumpkin spice edition. This one I really like. It's from Canadian. It's from Canada, and it says Canadian kike, which kike is a racial, not a racial term, but like a derogatory term for Jews. Racial kike finds swastika painted on the front door, blames Donald Trump. Like that headline can be written so many different ways, but it's written on purpose as Canadian kike. Like it's amazing. So it's obviously backing a certain viewpoint, and this website isn't like on like some dark corner of the interwebs. Like it's InfoWars is very well known. I see stickers on bumpers all the time on it. And this is not a hard transition. I made it in about 2 minutes of being on their website, and this is what you're finding. Again, I don't think people voted for Trump because of this, and I really don't. But this is part of him. This is part of the image that he created, whether he intended to or not. But here's what it is. If people associated Kevin with this stuff, I would look really hard at what I would have to do to make that not the case. And I have not seen Donald Trump do that. So we shall see what kind of administration he has.